Welcome, my soft-thinking listener. You've found yourself in the company of the Sleepy Sloth once again. A slow, scientifically minded fellow, who enjoys facts, ancient ruins, and things that have been slowly crumbling for many, many centuries. I must tell you something before we begin. Today, I consider myself a scientist in the field of lost and forgotten cities. A scientist who is almost always correct, except for those few times when I am not. But even then, I prefer to drift gently onward, rather than fuss over it. Because what truly matters is the information itself. Before I start, please, let me know. What is the most boring thing you would secretly love hearing about? Let me know gently, in the comments. Now, let us begin today's episode of the cities no one asked about, but I remember them anyway. Let us begin with Jericho. Not the dramatic version, but the real, quiet, archaeological Jericho. Nestled in the West Bank, near the Jordan River, this ancient city is often considered one of the oldest continuously inhabited places on Earth. That means, people have been slowly waking up and falling asleep there for over 11,000 years. But the Jericho I admire most is not the biblical one. It's the one from around 9000 BCE, a place of circular mud brick houses, and something called pre-pottery Neolithic architecture. Which means, rather comfortingly, they hadn't discovered clay pots yet. They built with stone tools. They harvested wild barley and einkorn wheat. But what is often overlooked is that Jericho's early inhabitants built a stone tower. A tall, silent tower, roughly 8.5 meters high, with a staircase spiraling up within. No one is entirely sure why it was made. Was it defensive? Ceremonial? A very ancient, very sleepy lighthouse? Perhaps. Perhaps not. No one asked the tower. And the tower never said a word. Nearby, a protective wall of stone surrounded the settlement, suggesting the quiet possibility of early urban planning. Or perhaps just a desire to keep the wild, whispering winds at bay. The presence of the wall and tower, together, hints at social cooperation. Slow-moving, steady. Like people passing stones, hand to hand, under a sun that never hurried. Excavations have also uncovered plastered skulls. Human remains tenderly decorated, with layers of lime and pigment, possibly for ancestor worship. These early residents of Jericho not only built walls, but also rituals, wrapping the departed in memory, rather than forgetting. This was no loud civilization, no bustling empire. It was slow, and it was dusty, and it was deliberate. The city faded and returned, again and again, like a breath in the desert. Let us drift, ever so slowly, to the next dust-covered cradle of civilization. Çatalhöyük, in what is now modern Turkey, is not quite a city in the way we know them, but rather, a very dense and very puzzling Neolithic settlement. Imagine a place where people built homes so close together, there were no streets, and people entered their houses through the roof, like sleepy squirrels crawling into quiet boxes. Çatalhöyük thrived between 7100 and 5700 BCE, and contained no public buildings, no temples, no palaces. Just hundreds of tightly packed homes with shared walls, decorated lovingly with wall paintings of vultures and bulls. They buried their dead beneath the floor, so that dreams and memories might lie just beneath the sleeping mat. The ruins were often replastered, layer upon layer, creating gentle bumps of historical quiet. And inside, they found obsidian tools, evidence of trade, and very early signs of social organization. Though everything moved at the pace of seasons and dust. No kings. No armies. just the slow rhythm of daily life, preserved in baked mud. And what curious mud it was! For it held not only homes, but echoes of symbolic thought. The interiors often included shrines, with bull horns embedded in benches, and reliefs of leopards or goddesses shaped in clay, suggesting a spiritual world that lived softly within the domestic one. Obsidian from the nearby volcanic peaks of Cappadocia was traded across long distances, piece by shiny piece, carried gently across the Anatolian plateau. And all the while, food was gathered, grains were ground, and clay figurines of plump women were formed, perhaps to honor fertility, or perhaps just because hands needed something to do. In this gentle, compact world, life was cyclical, and death never strayed far from the hearth. Let us float now, slowly onward, to an older still whisper of a place. Eridu. A city so old, its founding is wrapped in myth. Located in southern Mesopotamia, in present-day Iraq, Eridu is said by the Sumerians to be the first city in the world. The place where kingship descended from the heavens. It began around 5400 BC, and slowly, ever so slowly, grew from a humble fishing village on the edge of a marsh, into a ceremonial center. But even in its prime, Eridu never became a bustling metropolis. Instead, it was known for its temple to Enki, the god of fresh water, wisdom, and creation. This temple was rebuilt many times, layer upon layer, creating a ziggurat-like formation of sacred sediment. Over 18 temple levels have been excavated, each one slightly newer, yet deeply familiar, like a child drawing the same sleepy spiral, over and over again. The surrounding homes were modest, often made of mud brick, and nothing about daily life in Eridu moved quickly. Even the nearby canals were so slow they barely whispered. They were fed not by forceful rivers, but by patient trickles from the Euphrates, which meandered across the plains like a dream. Eridu also holds the oldest known Sumerian literary texts, where myths tell of a time before humans, when gods walked alone among the reeds. It was here, under the gentle sky, that Enki was said to dwell in the depths of the Abzu, the subterranean freshwater sea, a place of infinite stillness and knowledge. Priests may have walked barefoot through the temple's sacred spaces, leaving quiet traces in the dust. There were no grand armies, no glittering palaces, just layered shrines, soft reed boats, and the whisper of fish moving through shallow pools. The people who lived here ate dates, fish, and barley, and shaped clay into tokens and tablets, to record their soft transactions. Eventually, the marshes withdrew, and the people did too, and Eridu returned to the silence from which it came. And now, a soft, Phoenician sigh, as we move gently on. Byblos is where the sea meets the stone, a port city along the coast of what is now Lebanon. Founded around 5000 BC, and continuously inhabited since then, it sits like a sand-smoothed book of ancient stories. Byblos is the Greek name, but the original name was Gubla, or Gabal, a word that feels like warm gravel in the mouth. The city grew slowly, from a Neolithic fishing village into a center of timber trade. Cedars of Lebanon, tall, fragrant trees, were sent to Egypt by boat, and in return came papyrus, linen, and the faint smell of embalming oils. Byblos gave the Greeks the word biblion, meaning book, which is why the Bible is called the Bible. And yet, the streets of Byblos remained quiet. The Phoenicians, master seafarers, carved their alphabet here, a soft, minimal script that would float across the seas and become the root of many modern alphabets. But at night, only the waves spoke. And even they did not speak very loudly. Byblos remained, in all its salt-stained wisdom, like a seashell filled with voices you can barely hear. The temples here, such as the temple of Balat Gabal, dedicated to the city's patron goddess, were not adorned with thunder, but with carefully placed stones and humble altars. Excavations reveal layers upon layers of settlement, from mud brick to limestone, each revealing a slow evolution of tools, pottery, and architecture. The harbor was natural, protected by curving rocks, where ships could drift gently in and out, as if reluctant to leave. The city was a nexus, yet it never roared. Instead, it hummed, quietly, in trade languages and timber creaks, in the rustle of scrolls and the thud of ship ropes on old wood. Even today, the ancient ruins sit quietly by the sea, weathered but unbothered, still whispering soft syllables of civilizations long past. And now, the slowest among the mighty, Uruk. Uruk, in southern Mesopotamia, is often considered the first true city. Founded around 4000 BCE, it grew into a sprawling urban center with tens of thousands of people. It gave us writing, through the careful pressing of reeds into clay, creating cuneiform, the world's oldest known script. But even here, things took time. Clay tablets were not written quickly. They were shaped, dried, pressed, and left to harden in the sun, like thoughts taking a nap. Uruk was surrounded by a massive wall, said in epic tales to have been built by Gilgamesh himself, though history suggests it took many generations. Its two districts, Kulaba and Aina, housed temples to Anu and Inanna, with ziggurats rising like drowsy staircases into the sky. Bureaucrats tracked grain, labor, taxes, and oxen, not with urgency, but with slow and dusty precision. Every trade was logged, every jar noted, every quiet transaction became part of the city's memory. Uruk's architecture was a careful blend of mud brick, sun-dried and stacked, with walls thick enough to carry the weight of time. The Aina temple complex, dedicated to Inanna, goddess of love and war, was filled with cylinder seals, pressed into clay like soft whispers of bureaucracy, each with intricate, sleepy spirals and patterns of devotion. The earliest known literature, the Epic of Gilgamesh, was born here, chiseled into tablets that would be buried, forgotten, and later, softly rediscovered. The economy pulsed gently through a system of ration tokens, temple granaries, and canal-fed fields, where barley rustled without complaint. Canals, wide and slow, laced through the city, moving people and goods with the speed of a thoughtful breath. Children played with baked clay toys. Priests performed rituals under flickering oil lamps. And in the market, measured voices traded for textiles, metals, and incense, with no need for haste. And when Uruk declined, around 700 BCE, it did not scream. It simply slept, beneath sand and silence, until we found it again. And even now, it seems reluctant to wake. You're not just any city, but the sleepy jewel of Sumer. Not Uruk's rival exactly, more like its gentle sibling, yawning just a little farther downstream. Located near the confluence of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, in what is now southern Iraq, your first stirred to life around 3800 BCE. It blossomed into a major Sumerian city by the early Bronze Age, especially around 2100 BCE, during what is dreamily referred to as the Third Dynasty of Ur. You may picture it now, slowly waking under the Mesopotamian sun. Its ziggurat, a grand stepped temple, rising like a sleepy staircase into the dust-heavy sky. This ziggurat, dedicated to the moon god Nana, also called Sin, was constructed with baked bricks, in that gentle reddish hue that only millennia can fade properly. At its peak, Ur was home to around 65,000 people, though they did not all rush at once. They trickled into markets, temples, and courtyards, with sandals worn soft and voices muted by wind. But first, a slow little detour, for this extra interesting fact. In 1922, British archaeologist Sir Leonard Woolley unearthed the royal cemetery of Ur, and inside were the softest of relics, lyres with golden bowls, beaded necklaces of lapis lazuli, and the bones of attendants, carefully arranged, as if lying down for one last nap beside their queen. These discoveries whisper of ritual, and sorrow, and a kind of quiet glory. The houses of Ur were narrow, built close together, with drainage systems and internal courtyards. The people baked bread, brewed beer, and recorded their taxes on clay. Slowly, predictably. And like all cities in the Fertile Crescent, Ur did not vanish in fire, but faded with the changing of river paths, the shrinking of trade, and the long breath of time. Even now, the great ziggurat stands in partial restoration, rising out of the sand like a thoughtful memory. Let us float gently onward, to a place more shattered, yet no less slow. Bab-edra is not a name that stirs many hearts. But it is old. Very old. Nestled near the southeastern shore of the Dead Sea, in what is now Jordan, this Bronze Age site dates back to around 3300 BCE. Many link it softly, speculatively, to the biblical city of Sodom. But such stories are loud, and we are here for the quiet kind. Bab-edra was not large. Its population likely peaked at just a few hundred sleepy souls. Yet what makes it gently unforgettable is its burial landscape. Oh yes. For surrounding the main settlement, archaeologists found thousands of shaft tombs, hollowed gently into the earth, some 6 meters deep, and many containing ossuaries, ceramic boxes filled with bones and offerings. Imagine a field of silence, a necropolis where time stacked its people like thoughts, layer by layer. But first, let us pause for this strangely soothing detail. The dwellings of Bab-edra were built of stone and mud brick, with tightly clustered plans, perhaps for warmth, or simply to make room for more tombs. The cemetery here is one of the oldest known examples of a formal burial ground, suggesting that even in early urban life, humans thought not just of living, but of how to sleep forever. In the early Bronze Age, the town even had a defensive wall, though it wasn't very tall, and did little to stop the slow crumbling that came later. Whether destroyed by earthquake, drought, or simple decline, Bab-edra was abandoned by around 2350 BC. No dramatics. Just stillness. Its remains now rest under salty skies and gritty breezes, a lonely cluster of stone, above a valley that once shimmered, and now just waits. Let us drift, like bone dust in the desert wind, toward a city wrapped in myth and marble. Troy. Yes, that Troy. But not the one with shouting Greeks and wooden horses. The real Troy is quieter, much older, and far more complicated. Located in northwest Anatolia, near the Dardanelles in modern-day Turkey, the site known as Hisarlik has revealed at least 9 main layers of settlement, each one stacked gently atop the other like centuries sleeping in a pile. Troy began around 3000 BCE. But Troy VI and VIA, dating to around 1700 to 1200 BCE, are most often linked with Homer's tales. Yet archaeology tells a slower story. Walls were built of large limestone blocks, slowly, methodically, some up to 5 meters thick, perhaps for defense, or simply to feel secure in the wind. The city had towers, gates, and stone-paved streets that wound around houses of mud brick and timber. But first, a slow little detour. To the pottery. Oh, the pottery. Gray wares. Two-handled crauters. Bowls that curled gently at the lip. Glazed with care. Trade evidence suggests links with Mycenae, Cyprus, and Egypt. This was a port, after all. And ships, sail flapping and barnacle burdened, drifted softly in and out. Whether war came or not, the real Troy fell gradually. Not all at once. Perhaps an earthquake. Perhaps economic decline. Perhaps both. In the end, the city was rebuilt. And rebuilt again. 9 Troys. Layered like a cake of clay and ash. Now, the site lies exposed. Brushed clean by winds and students' brushes. And still, it watches the horizon. Hoping, perhaps, that no one asks too much. Let us tiptoe now. Toward another sun-baked city of soft records and temple light. A city called Sippar. Sippar, a city of tablets and sun, rested calmly along the eastern bank of the Euphrates River, in what is now modern-day Iraq. Thought to have been founded sometime in the early 3rd millennium BC, Sippar rose gently into prominence during the Akkadian and Babylonian periods. But this was not a city of soldiers or emperors. This was a city of scribes. And of Shamash, the sun god of truth and justice. The temple of Shamash was the warm, silent heart of the city. Its bricks bearing inscriptions that flicker in the light like reflections off still water. The priests and scholars of Sippar did not shout or march. They pressed. They pressed styluses into clay. Over and over again. Leaving behind tens of thousands of cuneiform tablets. Administrative records. Mathematical tables. Legal codes. Contracts for donkeys. Receipts for beer. All of it preserved by time and by fire-hardened mud. But first, a slow little detour. For this dusty fact. The most famous of Sippar's tablets is the sun god tablet, a depiction of Shamash seated on a throne, rays gently stretching from his shoulders, as if to illuminate not just the land, but the rules that must govern it. The city was likely divided into quarters, with open courtyards, workshops, and homes of modest size. Its ziggurat, though now a worn mound, once rose in reverent steps, likely painted in faded colors, toward the heavy Mesopotamian sky. And as time moved forward, Sippar quietly persisted, functioning well into the Neo-Babylonian period before slowly, softly, being abandoned. The scribes left. The ink dried. The sun god's temple, once bright with offerings, dimmed to a whisper. Today, the site of Abu Habnuya marks where Sippar once sat. It is still, remarkably still. Let us drift, from law and sunlight, toward another hush-filled city, one with palaces and painted walls. Mari was a city of mirages, of river mists, and of bureaucratic dreams. It lay along the Euphrates, in present-day Syria, and rose into a shimmering form around 2900 BCE. Mari was a city-state, independent but watchful, a guardian of trade between Sumer and the Levant. Its greatest bloom came in the early 2nd millennium BC, during the Amorite period. But unlike cities made of temples and ziggurats, Mari was made of archives and palaces. Oh, the palace! The royal palace of Mari was a winding marvel, with more than 300 rooms, covering nearly 2.5 hectares. It had courtyards where sandals left symmetrical scuffs. Walls painted with scenes, kings receiving blessings. Rivers flowing sideways into the divine. But first, a slow little detour. Into the archives. Within the palace were discovered more than 20,000 clay tablets. Letters. Administrative documents. School exercises. Diplomatic correspondence. All pressed with sleep-inducing precision into cuneiform. These texts reveal names, marriages, grain shipments, and the soft logistics of everyday rule. King Zimri Lim, one of Mari's most notable rulers, once received a letter gently explaining that his wife had been sent sweet-smelling oil from the countryside. And would he please send more copper in return? The Mari tablets also hold the earliest known mention of the word Canaan, resting quietly in a line of dusty diplomacy. Mari's houses were made of mud brick, clustered around the palace like children huddled around a story. Water came through a system of canals. And the city shimmered in the heat, like a thought just out of reach. But like many cities touched by empires, Mari fell. Hammurabi of Babylon swept through around 1759 BCE, and the palace was burned, yet the fire preserved the tablets. And now, Mari slumbers in layers of silt. Her runes empty, but her words still warm to the touch. Let us sway now, slowly, to the sea-slick stone of a Phoenician harbor. Tyre, perched gently along the Mediterranean coast of what is now Lebanon, was not just a city, but an island, a whisper of salt in sail. Founded by the Phoenicians, those masters of purple dye and quiet navigation, around 2750 BC, Tyre began as a sleepy twin settlement, one on the mainland, and one on an offshore islet, about 800 meters away. Over time, it was the island that bloomed. Its limestone walls, rising like coral above the surf, would one day be described as impregnable. But they were built slowly, stone by stone, by hands stained purple. For Tyre's glory came not from conquest, but from the murex shell. But first, a pause, to consider the shell itself. Tiny, spiny, unremarkable to most. And yet, within it, a gland that, when fermented under sunlight, produced a dye so deep, so rich. It was called Tyrian purple. It took thousands of shells to make just 1 gram. And so, Tyre smelled strongly. The air filled with the sleepy reek of rotting mollusks. Yet nobility across the world clamored for cloth touched by its stink. The city grew wealthy. Its traders set sail across the Mediterranean, founding colonies as far as Carthage, and spreading their alphabet, the precursor to Greek and Latin, one soft letter at a time. Temples to Melkart, the city's patron deity, stood on the island's peak, where priests tended eternal flames, and offerings drifted upward like heat. Tyre resisted siege after siege, until Alexander the Great arrived in 332 BC, and built a causeway from the mainland, stone by patient stone, to breach the island. The city was taken. But the causeway remains. And today, Tyre is tethered to the coast by that thin, accidental strip of land, like a dream caught on a thread. The old harbors, now submerged, cradle ancient shipwrecks beneath gentle blue waves. And Tyre still lingers, as both place and echo. Let us now go to where rivers once whispered in twin tongues, and streets ran straight like careful thoughts, guided not by kings or conquest, but by a quieter logic. Mohenjo-Daro, which means Mound of the Dead, rests in the soft dusts of Sindh, Pakistan, and once cradled one of the most mysterious cities the world has ever forgotten. Born gently around 2500 BC, within the folds of the Indus Valley civilization, this city didn't grow from temples or palaces, but from symmetry. Its streets were laid in perfect grids, a design so modern, it makes time feel like a circle. But first, a slow little detour into water. For Mohenjo-Daro's greatness came not from weapons, but from baths and drains. The Great Bath, an enormous sunken basin, built from baked brick and sealed with bitumen, may have served ritual purposes, or simply been a place to soak and reflect beneath the coppery light of dusk. Each house, no matter how humble, had access to running water. Clay pipes, sloping gently, whispered wastewater away from daily life. No other ancient city was so obsessed with cleanliness. Yet, there are no grand statues of rulers. No clear evidence of temples towering into the clouds. Mohenjo-Daro was quiet, organized, almost anonymous. People lived in rows of two-story brick homes, with inner courtyards and covered wells. Traders weighed goods using standardized stone weights, and seals carved with unicorns or tigers were pressed into soft clay, perhaps as trademarks or identification. Around 1900 BC, the city began to fade. Not in fire, not in invasion, but in layers of slow silt and shifting rivers. Today, it sleeps under scorching sun and UNESCO protections. And though its name now means death, its design still murmurs of thoughtful, shared life. Let us float gently onward, along the same river system, where another city once bloomed like fired clay, Harappa, nestled further upstream in what is now Punjab, Pakistan, was once a sibling city to Mohenjo-Daro, both dreaming in brick and logic. Its roots reach back to at least 2600 BCE, and some evidence hints it may have risen even earlier. Harappa, too, wore the quiet sophistication of the Indus Valley, wide streets, standard measurements, and a love of cleanliness not found elsewhere in the Bronze Age. But before we dive into its walls, let us take a detour through time's cruel irony. For while Harappa gave its name to an entire civilization, much of it was lost when 19th-century engineers used its ancient bricks to build colonial railway beds. What was once the heartbeat of an urban miracle was quietly repurposed into ballast. Yet, much still remains. Like its southern twin, Harappa featured granaries, long rectangular platforms with ventilation channels, perhaps used for drying surplus grain. Nearby, massive storage jars hint at large-scale food distribution, all managed with methodical calm. No royal palaces have been found. No war memorials. Instead, artifacts like children's toys, game boards, and fishhooks whisper of domestic lives. People crafted beads from carnelian, shell, and steatite. They dined from painted pottery, and sealed their goods with square stamps etched with animals and mysterious scripts, still undeciphered, like dreams with no waking memory. Skeletons unearthed from Harappa's cemeteries tell of lives both long and short. Some buried with care, others laid in haste, hinting, perhaps, at the city's later decline. Climate change? Shifting rivers? Internal strain? We cannot be sure. Harappa faded around 1900 BC, leaving behind bricks, weights, drains, and silence. Today, its mounds are gentle and grass-covered, like a memory no one quite remembers dreaming. But let us wander on, to another site, one not as famous, but perhaps just as old. Rakhigarhi rests beneath the sun-drenched fields of Haryana, India, and stretches wide, like a secret slowly revealed. It is the largest known site of the Indus Valley civilization, even larger, in total area, than Mohenjo-Daro. Dating back to nearly 2600 BC, and possibly earlier, Rakhigarhi sprawled across 7 distinct mounds, each rising softly from farmland as if unsure whether to return to the past or remain buried. The settlement was complex, layered, and quietly enduring. Excavations have uncovered the same baked bricks and drainage systems seen in other Indus cities. But here, there is something more intimate. Let us pause for an extra sleepy detail. In one of the graves uncovered at Rakhigarhi, archaeologists found 2 skeletons, male and female, buried side by side. The bones were undisturbed. Their hands did not touch, but their presence was deeply still. They were surrounded by pots, as if someone had tried to pack memories into terracotta. Rakhigarhi was not just a city of walls and wells, but of industry. Bead-making workshops littered the site, along with evidence of metallurgy, shell carving, and ceramic production. Houses were structured with mud brick walls, often arranged around courtyards that let in morning light and the drifting scent of cooking grains. Though the full city remains only partially excavated, recent DNA studies from Rakhigarhi's burial suggest surprising genetic continuity with modern South Asian populations, raising questions about the deep roots of identity, ancestry, and forgotten language. The script of the Indus Valley remains unreadable, and Rakhigarhi, though vast and dignified, offers no translation. Just bricks, beads, bones, and air that hums with ancient breath. As of now, only fragments are visible to the eye, while the rest waits, dreamlike, beneath soil and sugarcane. Shall we linger here, or drift onward, to other places wrapped in dust and dusk? Let us settle comfortably now into the quiet sands and whispered stones of even more ancient cities, where the echoes of slow footsteps mingle with the soft dust of forgotten years. Gursu, once a modest but important Sumerian city, lies nestled near the modern village of Tel Tello in southern Iraq. Its story begins softly, around 2700 BC, growing slowly under the shadow of its more famous sibling, Lagash. Yet, Gursu was no mere backwater. It served as a religious and administrative hub, especially for the powerful god Ningirsu, a deity associated with agriculture and war, though, of course, the war here was no loud affair, but a whispered transaction of power. The city's heart was the Nini temple, rebuilt repeatedly through the centuries, creating layers of sacred sediment like a slow sedimentation of faith. Let us pause. A slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact. The famous stele of the vultures was discovered here, a stone slab carved with intricate scenes of battle, but carved in such detail and order that even the battle seemed subdued, like dusty memories rather than shouts. The stele tells a story of conflict between Lagash and Uma, but the art is almost like a quiet lullaby of shapes and figures, arranged patiently on the stone surface. Surrounding the temple, homes and workshops clustered, where potters shaped clay with steady hands, and farmers brought barley and dates to market, all paced by the slow turn of seasons. Gursu was also a center for scribes, who etched records onto clay tablets, meticulously tracking grain distribution and labor duties, ancient spreadsheets, if you will, made with no hurry. Over time, the city gradually declined, its temples falling silent, until it became a mound of quiet dust, resting peacefully beneath Mesopotamian skies. Let us float gently onward to the shadowed hills of Syria, where Ebla awaits. Ebla, once a jewel among the ancient city-states of northern Syria, rests today under the sands near Tel Marduk. Established as early as 3000 BCE, Ebla's history is a slow unfolding of layers, both in soil and in story. Its palace and temples rose, brick by sun-dried brick, reflecting a culture both rich and quietly complex. But first, a slow little detour to the Ebla archives. Over 17,000 clay tablets were unearthed in the 1970s, revealing a bureaucracy that was vast yet peaceful, trade agreements, diplomatic correspondence, and inventories that hint at a city deeply involved in commerce. Ebla's scribes used a variant of cuneiform script, one of the earliest known alphabets, which recorded languages long since faded into silence. These tablets provide whispers of relationships between kingdoms, the exchange of goods like silver, wine, and timber, and even laws that governed quiet disputes. Architecturally, Ebla featured massive city walls, thick and protective, but not oppressive, enclosing homes arranged around courtyards that caught the gentle Syrian breezes. Life here was marked by rhythms of agriculture, craft, and trade, paced with the slow certainty of the seasons. As trade routes shifted and empires rose, Ebla's importance waned, and it settled into silence, layered beneath centuries of earth. Today, the ruins stand as a soft reminder of an ancient world that once was. Let us drift slowly now toward a faraway river delta. Lodal, set in the lowlands of Gujarat, India, was a quiet yet important port city of the Indus Valley civilization. Established around 2400 BCE, Lodal was not only a trading hub but also home to one of the world's earliest known dockyards. Imagine, if you will, a basin carved from mud brick and stone, designed to shelter ships from the gentle sway of tides. This harbor connected Lodal to distant lands, allowing the exchange of goods, beads, metals, and textiles, to drift slowly across the Arabian Sea. But first, a slow little detour for this extra interesting fact. Archaeologists have uncovered evidence of bead-making workshops, where artisans crafted intricate carnelian and agate beads, polished with quiet precision, as if their work itself was a meditation. The city's layout was meticulously planned, with well-defined streets, drainage systems, and standardized fired brick houses clustered neatly around open courtyards. Its residents farmed wheat, barley, and cotton, the earliest known use of cotton, in fact, under a soft sun. Pottery was painted in gentle geometric patterns, vessels crafted for daily use, not for grand display. Unlike some ancient cities, Lodal bore no palaces or massive temples, reflecting a society organized less by rulers and more by craftsmen and traders. Over centuries, shifting river courses and declining trade led to Lodol's gradual abandonment. Yet, the city's ruins lie peacefully beneath layers of sediment, whispering stories of commerce and craftsmanship, waiting quietly beneath the Indian sky. Let us float now, gently onward, to the next cradle of forgotten dust. Let us wander gently through the sun-warmed ruins of distant lands, where stone and silence meet in timeless slumber. Karnak, a vast temple complex resting quietly on the east bank of the Nile, near modern-day Luxor in Egypt, was not a city in the typical sense, but rather a sprawling sanctuary dedicated mostly to Amun-Ra, the sun god, and other divine beings. Its beginnings reach back tentatively to around 2000 BC, but the site grew slowly, over centuries, like a quiet garden expanding through careful planting. Imagine long avenues lined with colossal stone sphinxes, each carved with patience, faces softened by millennia of wind and sand. The Great Hypostyle Hall, a forest of 134 massive columns carved with hieroglyphs, stretches overhead like a drowsy stone canopy. But first, a slow little detour for this extra interesting fact. The columns are so closely spaced and towering that in the midday sun, little light reaches the floor, creating an eternal twilight within. Priests and pharaohs once moved silently through these shaded aisles, their footsteps muffled by centuries of dust. The walls are covered with inscriptions, tales of battles, offerings, and rituals, all carved with the slow rhythm of devotion. The Karnak complex includes several temples, chapels, and sacred lakes, each added bit by bit, as if stone itself were patient enough to wait for human faith to catch up. Unlike bustling cities, Karnak was a place of worship and ceremony, where the sacred and mundane mingled softly. Over time, parts were abandoned or repurposed, but the whole remained a slow whisper of divine presence. Today, the ruins lie under a vast sky, the heat shimmering like a lazy dream, beckoning visitors to pause and ponder. Let us float gently onward to an island palace of legend and labyrinth. Knossos, perched on the island of Crete, is perhaps the most famous of Minoan palaces, a labyrinthine complex whose walls once echoed with soft footfalls and quiet festivals. Dating to around 1900 BC, Knossos was the center of Minoan civilization, an enigmatic society that thrived quietly in the Bronze Age Mediterranean. Its multi-storied buildings, painted with frescoes of dolphins, lilies, and graceful bull leapers, speak of a culture attuned to nature and ritual. But first, a slow little detour for this extra interesting fact. The palace's famed labyrinth is less a maze and more a sprawling complex of storage rooms, living quarters, and ceremonial spaces, carefully planned without streets but with light wells to capture the sun's gentle glow. The architecture favored open courtyards and flowing water features, with advanced drainage systems to carry away the slow rain. Knossos was ruled by a king Minos, though much about this figure is wrapped in myth and mystery. The palace's walls were constructed with mud brick and stone, reinforced with timber, allowing them to flex slightly during earthquakes, a quiet engineering marvel. Life here moved with the rhythm of the sea and the seasons, fishing boats drifted silently into harbors, and artisans crafted pottery with fine brushstrokes. The city did not collapse in violence but faded in the face of volcanic ash and shifting politics. Excavated by Sir Arthur Evans in the early 20th century, Knossos now lies partially restored, inviting visitors to dream slowly through its sunlit halls. Let us drift softly onward to a desert oasis where history waits beneath the sand. Palmyra, a city perched like a mirage in the Syrian desert, was a quiet crossroads of caravan routes and cultures. Its roots reach back to at least the 2nd millennium BC, but it flourished between the 1st and 3rd century CE, under Roman rule and beyond. Palmyra's streets were lined with colonnades, tall, elegant columns carved from local limestone, that caught the desert light like a slow fire. The city's temple to Bel blended Greco-Roman and Near Eastern architectural styles, forming a sacred space that felt both distant and intimate. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact, Palmyra was famed for its caravan trade, with merchants transporting silk, spices, and precious stones from the east to the Mediterranean, all moving at the patient pace of camels and the slow-shifting dunes. The city's inhabitants spoke Palmyrene Aramaic and were known for their craftsmanship, especially in funerary art, elaborate tombs carved with soft portraits of long silent residents, their eyes forever half-closed. Palmyra's decline came gradually with the fall of the Roman Empire and changing trade routes, the desert reclaiming the streets with dust and silence. Today, the ruins stand beneath an endless sky, the gentle desert wind carrying whispers of once bustling markets and quiet prayers. Let us float gently onward. As we breathe deeply in this shared stillness, let us embark on a gentle journey through dust and memory, to places where time moves softly, like river silt settling slowly on a quiet shore. Akrotiri, a Bronze Age Minoan city nestled on the volcanic island of Santorini, or Thera, as it was once called, was swallowed slowly by volcanic ash around 1600 BCE. Unlike many lost cities, Akrotiri was not buried in haste, but in a thick, soft blanket of pumice and ash that preserved its secrets like a lullaby held in stone. This city, with multi-storied houses adorned with vibrant frescoes, speaks quietly of a sophisticated culture attuned to the sea and the land. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact, the frescoes at Akrotiri are remarkable for their depiction of everyday life, dolphins dancing in the waves, graceful figures gathering saffron crocuses, and vivid landscapes, captured with such delicate brushwork that they seem almost alive beneath their ash-coated prisons. The city was built with stone and mud brick, featuring narrow, winding streets and carefully designed drainage systems to carry away winter rains. There were no signs of fortifications or weapons, suggesting a peaceful existence, untroubled by siege or warfare. The volcanic eruption that covered Akrotiri was catastrophic but gradual enough to allow inhabitants to escape. Excavations have revealed advanced urban planning, with houses connected by staircases, light wells, and even indoor toilets, comforts rarely seen so early. Today, Akrotiri lies like a sleeping giant beneath whitewashed structures built to protect it from wind and sun, inviting visitors to wander softly through its ancient, ash-cloaked corridors. Let us float gently onward to a city of lion gates and carved stone. Hattusa, the capital of the Hittite Empire, stood deep within the rugged hills of modern-day Turkey. Founded perhaps as early as 2000 BC, it flourished from about 1600 to 1200 BC, becoming a formidable center of diplomacy, law, and worship. This city was not a blur of activity, but a place where stone walls grew slowly, enclosing temples, royal residences, and the famous Lion Gate, a massive stone portal carved with regal beasts standing patiently, guardians of time. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact. The Hittites inscribed their laws and treaties onto clay tablets, which have survived as whispers of order and justice, revealing a civilization concerned deeply with fairness and ritual. The city's sacred precinct contained temples dedicated to gods both borrowed and native, reflecting the gentle mingling of cultures across Anatolia. The streets, paved unevenly with stone slabs, carried the soft footfalls of priests and scribes, traders and craftsmen, all moving in rhythms tied to the seasons and rituals rather than haste. Hattus's decline was slow and enigmatic, entwined with the wider collapse of Bronze Age civilizations. The city was abandoned, its massive walls slowly softened by wind and time. Today, its ruins lie beneath wild grasses and whispering pines, the stones still holding on to their ancient secrets. Let us drift slowly onward, toward the sun-drenched sands of Egypt. Amarna, or Akhetaten, as it was called by its founder Pharaoh Akhenaten, was a city born of revolution and devotion. Established around 1350 BCE on the eastern bank of the Nile, it was built as a new capital dedicated exclusively to the sun god Aten, a radical departure from traditional Egyptian polytheism. The city rose quickly, its streets laid out with geometrical precision, houses built from mud brick, and temples open to the brilliant sunlight rather than shadowed sanctuaries. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact. The art of Amarna is distinctive for its graceful, elongated forms, depicting the royal family with tender realism, showing intimate moments rather than stiff formality. This stylistic shift whispers of a softer, more personal approach to divinity and rulership. Amarna's palaces featured open courtyards, decorated with frescoes of lotus blossoms and the sun's rays touching all life gently. The city was short-lived, abandoned soon after Akhenaten's death, as Egypt returned to its old gods and capitals. Yet the ruins remain a quiet testament to a fleeting experiment in belief and urban life. Archaeologists have uncovered streets lined with small workshops and homes, markets for daily goods, and elaborate tombs carved into nearby cliffs, still waiting for their stories to be softly told. Today, Amarna rests under the desert sun, a quiet city of radical ideas and gentle shadows. Let us float gently onward to more forgotten dreams beneath the dust. Let us sink softly now into the gentle depths of forgotten waves and silent stones, where ancient secrets rest like seashells waiting to be held with tender hands. The Uluburun shipwreck lies quietly beneath the turquoise waters off the coast of southwestern Turkey. Dating back to the late 14th century BC, this Bronze Age cargo ship was discovered in the 1980s, preserved as if the sea itself wished to keep its contents undisturbed. Imagine a wooden vessel, slowly sinking, its timbers swallowed by time and tide, carrying a precious cargo from distant lands. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact. Among the thousands of recovered artifacts were copper and tin ingots, ingredients for bronze, the metal of the age, alongside ostrich eggshells, ivory, glass beads, and even ebony wood. Each piece a whisper of long trade routes linking the eastern Mediterranean with Africa and beyond. The ship's cargo hints at a complex web of exchange, moving slowly like the gentle currents beneath the waves. Archaeologists painstakingly pieced together the scattered remnants, revealing a sophisticated seafaring culture that moved goods with careful precision. No sudden rush or frantic haste, just the slow, methodical rhythm of ancient commerce. The ship's hull fragments tell tales of skilled carpentry and repair, with nails and wooden pegs placed thoughtfully to weather many voyages. Today, the site rests beneath calm waters, a submerged time capsule reminding us of the quiet patience of traders long gone. Let us float gently onward, from the depths of the sea to the dry dust of Mesopotamian plains. Nimrud, once called Kalhu, rose slowly along the banks of the Tigris River in what is now northern Iraq. Established as a major Assyrian city around 1300 BC, Nimrud grew into a political and cultural heartland during the reign of Ashurnasirpal II and his successors. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact, Nimrud is renowned for its colossal stone reliefs and lamassu, winged protective spirits with the bodies of bulls and faces of men, placed at gateways to silently guard the city. These monumental sculptures, carved with painstaking detail, suggest a civilization that valued symbolism and power, yet expressed it in slow, deliberate craftsmanship. The city's palace walls were adorned with scenes of royal hunts, divine ceremonies, and conquests, all rendered in bas-relief with the kind of patient attention that invites quiet contemplation rather than urgent thrill. The streets and temples were constructed from mud brick and stone, laid out in an orderly plan reflective of Assyrian architectural sensibilities. Nimrud's libraries contained clay tablets preserving royal decrees and prayers, carefully inscribed in cuneiform script by attentive scribes. Over time, the city faced sieges and destruction, eventually falling silent under layers of debris and sand. The rediscovery of Nimrud in the 19th century unveiled a treasure trove of history, though sadly much of it was lost in recent decades. Yet, its ruins remain a slow, enduring echo of Assyria's vast and solemn grandeur. Let us drift gently onward to the grand terraces of an empire long past. Persepolis, perched high upon a limestone plateau in modern-day Iran, was the ceremonial capital of the Achaemenid Empire, founded by Darius the Great around 518 BC. Unlike bustling trade centers, Persepolis was designed as a place of ritual and grandeur, a city built slowly, stone by stone, to impress visiting dignitaries with the empire's vastness and order. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact, the famous Apadana Hall, with its forest of 72 towering columns topped with intricately carved bulls and lions, served as a grand audience hall, where representatives from many nations brought gifts to the king. The stone reliefs along the staircases depict these delegations, each carved with careful detail, their costumes, gifts, and even expressions captured in a slow, deliberate homage to diversity and submission. The city's walls were made from huge stone blocks, precisely cut and fitted, showing remarkable ancient engineering patience. Within Persepolis, terraces rose in layers, with palaces, treasury buildings, and storehouses arranged meticulously, all accessed by broad staircases. The inscriptions found here, written in Old Persian, Elamite, and Babylonian cuneiform, document the empire's governance in quiet, bureaucratic tones. The city was sacked by Alexander the Great in 330 BC, its destruction slow and smoldering, leaving behind charred stones and silent columns. Today, the ruins stand as a testament to imperial ambition measured in years, not moments. Let us float gently onward into the embrace of history's soft shadows. Let us nestle softly into the folds of time once more, to explore cities that rest beneath earth and water, their stories whispered like gentle breezes. Let us wander slowly, gently onward. Palenque, a coastal city of ancient Greece, once perched quietly on the shores of the Corinthian Gulf, was a place of modest streets, temples, and homes woven with the daily rhythms of fishing and worship. Founded perhaps as early as the 8th century BC, Palenque held a sacred connection to Poseidon, the god of the sea, and was known for its peaceful festivals and sanctuaries. But first, a slow little detour for this extra interesting fact. In 373 BC, the city was swallowed almost overnight by an earthquake and subsequent tsunami, slipping beneath the waters of the Gulf as if the sea itself had reached up to cradle it in a soft embrace. This sudden submersion preserved its memory in ancient texts, but the city's exact location remained lost for centuries, like a secret tucked beneath waves. Archaeologists have since found ruins offshore, pillars, walls, and artifacts lying quietly beneath the sea, cloaked in silt and silence. Palenque was not a sprawling metropolis but a gentle community, with temples built from local stone and streets arranged with modest order. Its demise was neither violent nor hurried but a slow, watery disappearance, leaving behind only myths and faint echoes of stone. Today, divers and scientists explore the submerged remains with tender curiosity, piecing together a city that sleeps beneath the waves, still bathed in Poseidon's quiet shadow. Let us float gently onward from the deep sea to dense jungles. Palenque, hidden amid the lush, humid forests of Chiapas, Mexico, was a Mayan city that grew steadily between 600 and 800 CE, reaching a height of artistic and architectural grace. Its temples and palaces rise softly from the jungle floor, cloaked in moss and mystery, like whispers caught between leaves. But first, a slow little detour for this extra interesting fact. The Temple of the Inscriptions, Palenque's most famous structure, is a pyramid-shaped tomb where the tomb of Pakal the Great was discovered, complete with an intricately carved sarcophagus lid depicting the ruler's descent into the underworld, a quiet masterpiece of symbolism and belief. The city's architecture is notable for its graceful corbelled arches and elaborate stucco sculptures that seem to breathe softly under centuries of rain and shade. Unlike some ancient cities of bustling plazas, Palenque's layout unfolds gently among natural features, rivers, hills, and caves, integrating the built environment with the surrounding landscape. Its hieroglyphic inscriptions tell slow, intricate stories of royal lineages, ceremonies, and cosmic cycles, carved with painstaking care by scribes whose hands moved with reverence. The city declined gradually, likely due to ecological changes and shifting political alliances, fading beneath the jungle canopy rather than by sudden destruction. Today, Palenque's ruins lie peacefully beneath branches and vines, a soft melody of stone and leaf. Let us drift softly onward across oceans to ancient valleys of stone. Teotihuacan, located in the basin of Mexico, is one of the largest pre-Columbian cities in the Americas. Flourishing roughly between 100 BCE and 550 CE, it grew slowly into an immense urban center, home to tens of thousands. Its broad avenues and towering pyramids still hold the silent breath of countless generations. But first, a slow little detour for this extra interesting fact. The city's name, given by the Aztecs centuries later, means the place where the gods were created, yet the original inhabitants remain largely a mystery, their language and names lost beneath time's vast dust. Teotihuacan was laid out with remarkable precision, featuring the Avenue of the Dead, a broad, straight thoroughfare lined with temples, platforms, and residential compounds. The Pyramid of the Sun and Pyramid of the Moon rise like great stone breaths, built layer by layer, their construction paced by rituals and labor that stretched over decades. Residential complexes housed families who lived in carefully planned neighborhoods, with painted murals depicting abstract designs and deities, perhaps reflecting a shared spiritual vision. Artisans worked in obsidian workshops, crafting tools and ornaments with slow, exacting care. The city's decline was gradual, possibly caused by environmental stress and internal unrest, and was followed by centuries of silence until rediscovery in the 19th and 20th centuries. Today, Teotihuacan invites us to wander its vast plazas and stairways, feeling the soft pulse of a civilization both grand and gentle in its fading. Let us float gently onward into the soft twilight of ancient worlds. Pompeii, a Roman city nestled near the Bay of Naples, was a bustling town known for its villas, markets, and the slow rhythm of daily life in the 1st century CE. Founded long before the eruption that would one day silence it, Pompeii flourished quietly under the warmth of the Italian sun. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact. The city streets were paved with large stone slabs, worn smooth by the steady passage of carts and feet, each wheel rut a gentle trace of commerce and travel. Houses were built with bricks and volcanic stone, featuring atriums that captured light like soft pools in a quiet forest. Markets offered olives, fish, and garum, a pungent fish sauce beloved by Romans, slowly fermented over weeks in terracotta jars. Pompeii's sudden burial under ash and pumice from Mount Vesuvius in 79 CE was catastrophic, yet the ash hardened like a protective shroud, preserving buildings, frescoes, and even the haunting forms of those caught in the eruption. The plaster casts of victims reveal a stillness frozen in time, soft shadows of human moments. Excavations have revealed baths, theaters, and temples, each space imbued with the quiet rhythms of ancient Roman life, now silent but never forgotten. Let us float gently onward to a neighboring city, quietly preserved beneath layers of history. Herculaneum, smaller and wealthier than Pompeii, lay closer to Vesuvius and met a similar fate in the same eruption. Unlike Pompeii's thick ash, Herculaneum was buried under a torrent of hot mud and volcanic material that carbonized wood and organic materials, preserving even more of its delicate interiors. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact. Many of Herculaneum's houses contained wooden balconies, furniture, and even food remnants, figs, nuts, and bread, frozen in a moment of quiet domesticity. The city streets were narrower and more labyrinthine than Pompeii's, winding gently between elegant villas adorned with frescoes of mythological scenes and garden landscapes. Public baths, fountains, and a small theater reflect a community accustomed to leisure paced by social rituals and warm waters. Archaeologists have uncovered scrolls of papyrus in the Villa of the Papyri, carbonized yet still legible, a rare glimpse into ancient literature. Herculaneum's preservation offers a softer, more intimate window into Roman life, where time's hush is palpable in every shadowed corner. Let us drift slowly onward, across the Mediterranean sands to North Africa's desert bloom. Timgad, founded by Emperor Trajan around 100 CE in what is now Algeria, was a Roman colonial town planned with exquisite orderliness. Its grid layout, intersected by the Decumanus and Cardo streets, allowed a slow, measured pace of movement through public squares, forums, and temples. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact. The city was designed to house veterans of the Roman army, who settled here with their families, establishing quiet farms and workshops on the fringes. Timgad's theaters and baths served as centers for communal relaxation and ritual, spaces where water flowed gently and conversations drifted like soft echoes. The city's ruins reveal finely cut stones, carved inscriptions, and mosaics depicting everyday scenes and mythic figures, each detail crafted with patience and care. Over time, Timgad faded as the Roman Empire's influence waned, its structures succumbing to the desert's slow reclamation. Today, it stands as a serene archaeological site, where visitors can wander beneath wide skies and imagine a city built not with haste, but with the steady hands of order and routine. Let us float gently onward to the lush jungles of Central America. Copan, nestled in the hills of western Honduras, was a Mayan city flourishing between 400 and 900 CE, known for its refined artistry and stele, tall stone monuments carved with intricate hieroglyphs and portraits of rulers. Unlike sprawling metropolises, Copan's layout unfolds softly across a series of terraces and plazas, blending with the surrounding landscape. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact. The city's ball court, where ritual games were played, echoes with quiet footsteps of players and spectators alike, its stone benches now softened by moss and time. The hieroglyphic stairway, with over 2,000 glyphs carved into its risers, tells the city's slow history in painstaking detail, a slow-motion film of dynasty and devotion. Copan's artisans crafted ceramics and sculptures that still exude the calm dignity of a culture attuned to cycles of nature and ceremony. The city declined gradually, its population dispersing as environmental and political changes unfolded, leaving behind a sleeping city draped in jungle green. Today, Copan's ruins invite us to wander gently beneath ancient trees, listening to the soft echoes of stone stories. Let us drift softly onward through the tender folds of time's embrace. Tikal, nestled deep within the dense jungles of Guatemala, was one of the grandest Mayan cities, its origins tracing back to around 600 BCE with its peak flourishing between 200 and 900 CE. Imagine towering limestone pyramids rising like silent stone trees through the mist, their steep stairways climbing slowly toward the drowsy sky. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact. Tikal's Great Plaza is surrounded by temples and palaces, constructed with careful precision, their surfaces once painted with vibrant reds and blues that have now faded into soft whispers. The city was a hub of ritual and governance, with plazas where dignitaries and priests moved with deliberate grace, observing the slow passage of the sun and stars. Intricate carvings and stele tell stories in hieroglyphs, carved with painstaking patience by Mayan scribes who understood the rhythm of time as a gentle cycle rather than a rush. The dense jungle grew slowly around the ruins after the city was abandoned, wrapping the stone in vines and moss, softening the edges of history. Today, Tikal's ruins rise quietly above the canopy, inviting visitors to float gently onward through a world where nature and civilization intertwine softly in the slow dance of centuries. Let us drift gently onward to the high plains of the Andes. Tiwanaku, sometimes spelled Tiahuanaco, rests beside the shimmering waters of Lake Titicaca in the high Andes of Bolivia. This city, flourishing between 300 and 1000 CE, was the ceremonial heart of a mysterious Andean culture that crafted monumental stone architecture with remarkable precision. But first, a slow little detour for this extra interesting fact. The Gateway of the Sun, a grand stone arch carved with intricate figures and symbols, stands as a quiet sentinel to Tiwanaku's spiritual life, its carvings so precise that they seem almost to hum with a slow, ancient energy. The city's stone blocks were quarried and transported with painstaking care, fitting together seamlessly without mortar, as if the stones themselves whispered secrets in a slow, knowing language. Tiwanaku's layout includes sunken courts, pyramid-like platforms, and canals for irrigation, reflecting a culture attuned to the rhythms of water, agriculture, and the high-altitude environment. The city gradually declined, possibly due to climatic shifts and resource pressures, leaving its stones to rest beneath the sweeping winds of the Altiplano. Today, Tiwanaku's ruins lie softly against the vast Andean sky, inviting us to ponder the slow unfolding of ancient mysteries. Let us float gently onward across dusty plateaus to the American Southwest. Pueblo Bonito, nestled in the arid canyon lands of Chaco Canyon, New Mexico, was a monumental settlement built by the ancestral Puebloans between roughly 828 and 1126 CE. This massive complex of stone and adobe structures sprawled quietly over several acres, with hundreds of rooms arranged around open plazas and kivas, circular ceremonial spaces. But first, a slow little detour for this extra interesting fact. The builders crafted massive timber roofs supported by juniper and pine beams, their construction a slow and deliberate act of patience and skill in a landscape that moves softly with the desert winds. Pueblo Bonito's architecture reflects sophisticated planning, with precise alignments to solar and lunar cycles, connecting the built environment gently with the celestial dance above. The community likely supported hundreds of people, living in rooms stacked several stories high, connected by narrow passageways and ladders. Pottery shards and tools found on site tell of daily life conducted with calm routine and respect for the natural world. The settlement was gradually abandoned, its stones falling softly into quiet ruin as the climate changed and resources became scarce. Today, Pueblo Bonito remains a quiet testament to a culture that moved with the slow rhythms of sky and earth, inviting us to walk gently through its storied halls. Let us drift softly onward into the next embrace of time. Let us drift slowly through the tangled leaves of ancient jungles and the calm blue of vast oceans, to places where stone and memory hold the whispers of civilizations long past. Chichen Itza, nestled deep within the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico, was a vibrant Mayan city that flourished roughly between 600 and 1200 CE. Its name, meaning at the mouth of the well of the Itza, evokes the sacred cenotes, natural sinkholes filled with cool, still water, that were central to the city's spiritual life. But first, a slow little detour for this extra interesting fact. The famed El Castillo Pyramid, also called the Temple of Kukulkan, was constructed with a slow and precise geometry that marks the solar equinoxes with shadows resembling a descending serpent, a gentle dance between earth and sun. The pyramid has 91 steps on each side, plus the platform at the top, totaling 365, the number of days in the solar year, carefully carved to mirror the quiet passage of time. Surrounding this majestic structure are plazas, ball courts, and the observatory known as El Caracol, where Mayan astronomers tracked the slow movements of Venus and other celestial bodies. Chichen Itza was a hub of commerce, politics, and religion, where rituals moved at the rhythm of seasons and stars rather than haste. The city's decline was gradual, fading into the thick embrace of jungle until rediscovered centuries later, its stones still humming with ancient quiet. Let us float gently onward to a mysterious city rising from the sea, Nan Madol. A sprawling city of stone islets set upon a lagoon in the Federated States of Micronesia, was constructed slowly between the 1st and 15th centuries CE by the Saudalar dynasty. This Venice of the Pacific is composed of nearly 100 artificial islets, built with massive basalt columns stacked carefully without mortar, creating a labyrinth of canals and platforms. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact, the basalt stones used in construction were quarried on nearby islands and transported across the lagoon, a feat requiring patient coordination and effort, reflecting a society that moved deliberately with the tides and rhythms of the ocean. The city served as a political and ceremonial center, with royal compounds, temples, and tombs connected by quiet waterways. The Saudalar rulers governed with both religious and political authority, their reigns unfolding slowly amid the gentle crash of waves and rustling palms. Nan Madol's decline was gradual, its population dispersing as social and environmental pressures shifted, leaving behind a haunting cityscape of stone pillars rising like ghosts from the sea. Today, Nan Madol lies quietly beneath tropical skies, inviting soft contemplation of human endeavor harmonized with nature's patient pulse. Let us drift softly onward, across desert mesas and skyward canyons. Mesa Verde, perched high in the cliffs of southwestern Colorado, was home to the ancestral Puebloans who built an astonishing complex of cliff dwellings between roughly 600 and 1300 CE. These stone homes, nestled within alcoves carved by time itself, rise gently from the canyon walls, their windows and kivas opening softly to the sky. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact, the construction of these dwellings involved painstaking placement of sandstone blocks in adobe mortar, layering each wall with care and patience, often over decades. The cliff dwellings provided protection and shelter from the elements, their quiet rooms filled with pottery shards, woven textiles, and tools hinting at daily life lived in harmony with the slow cycles of sun and rain. The kivas, circular subterranean chambers used for ceremonies, were carefully built with benches and fire pits, spaces for communal reflection and ritual at a gentle pace. As the climate shifted and resources became scarce, the inhabitants gradually left their homes, walking slowly into the expanding landscape beyond. Today, Mesa Verde stands as a testament to resilience and quiet ingenuity, its silent walls inviting us to wander softly through the memories carved in stone. Let us float gently onward through the endless calm of ancient times. Let us drift gently through the whispered histories of places where time moves slowly, and stories are etched with careful patience. Cahokia. Resting near the confluence of the Mississippi, Missouri, and Illinois rivers in what is now Illinois, was once the largest pre-Columbian city north of Mexico, flourishing between roughly 1050 and 1350 CE. Unlike stone cities of old worlds, Cahokia was built largely of earth and wood, its most famous features being the great earthen mounds, massive, gently sloping hills shaped by human hands. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact. Monk's Mound, the largest of these, rises approximately 30 meters high, a slow-formed pyramid of soil, layered over centuries with painstaking care and effort by the Mississippian people. This mound likely supported a large wooden structure atop it, perhaps the residence of a chief or a temple, a quiet center of leadership and ceremony. The city was planned with an orderly layout, including plazas, residential areas, and wooden stockades, reflecting a society that moved with the rhythms of seasonal floods and harvests. Cahokia's population is estimated at tens of thousands, living with a slow pulse of trade, agriculture, and ritual, cultivating corn, beans, and squash. Over time, the city's influence waned, likely due to environmental changes and social pressures, leaving behind these monumental earthworks as silent witnesses. Today, Cahokia mounds invite gentle reflection on a civilization built in soft earth and slow time. Let us float gently onward to the misty peaks of the Andes. Machu Picchu, perched high on a mountain ridge above the Urubamba River Valley in Peru, was constructed by the Inca in the 15th century CE. Often called the lost city of the Incas, Machu Picchu remains a marvel of stone architecture and engineering, nestled amid clouds and forest. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact. The site's terraced fields, cut into steep hillsides, were designed to retain water and prevent erosion, a patient response to the challenges of mountainous terrain. The stone blocks, meticulously carved and fitted without mortar, create buildings that have stood for centuries against wind and rain. Machu Picchu's temples, plazas, and dwellings align with astronomical events, showing the Incas' gentle attentiveness to the cosmos and seasons. The city was likely a royal estate or sacred center, where the Inca elite lived and conducted ceremonies in harmony with nature's slow cycles. Abandoned in the face of Spanish conquest and internal strife, Machu Picchu was hidden beneath vegetation until rediscovered in the early 20th century, its stones softly telling tales of empire and quiet devotion. Let us drift softly onward through the sands of ancient Mesopotamia. Nineveh, once the capital of the Assyrian Empire, rose slowly along the eastern bank of the Tigris River in what is now northern Iraq. Dating back to the 7th century BC, Nineveh was a vast city of grand palaces, temples, and extensive libraries. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact. The famed library of Ashurbanipal housed thousands of clay tablets inscribed with cuneiform writing, epics, prayers, medical texts, and royal records, preserved like a slow and steady archive of human knowledge. The city's walls stretched over 12 kilometers and were punctuated by massive gates guarded by lamassu, stone statues with human heads, wings, and the bodies of bulls, standing in silent vigilance. Nineveh's urban planning reflected a slow and deliberate arrangement of temples, palaces, and residential quarters, where life moved with the weight of imperial administration and ritual observance. The city fell after a prolonged siege, its destruction slow and thorough, yet much of its heritage survived beneath layers of earth, patiently waiting to be uncovered. Today, the ruins of Nineveh lie quietly beneath the modern city of Mosul, a soft echo of an empire's grand but measured footsteps. Let us float gently onward into the quiet corridors of forgotten time. Thonis Heraklion, once a bustling Egyptian port city near the mouth of the Nile, now lies quietly beneath the waters of the Mediterranean Sea, near modern-day Alexandria. This city, founded perhaps as early as the 8th century BC, thrived as a hub of commerce and culture, where ships from Greece, Egypt, and beyond met under the warm sun. But first, a slow little detour for this extra interesting fact. The city's submersion was gradual, caused by a combination of rising sea levels, earthquakes, and the soft settling of the delta's sediment, gently swallowing temples, statues, and docks beneath waves. Among the treasures recovered by underwater archaeologists are colossal statues of gods and pharaohs, some resting serenely on the seabed, their faces worn softly by centuries of water and sand. The city was known for its sacred temple to Amun-Jareb, a silent witness to generations of ritual and prayer. Thonis Heraklion streets once echoed with the slow cadence of traders, priests, and fishermen, a rhythm now quieted but not erased. As waves ripple above its ruins, the city's memory drifts softly, waiting patiently to be rediscovered. Let us float gently onward to the lush jungles of Southeast Asia. Angkor, the magnificent capital of the Khmer Empire in what is now Cambodia, flourished between the 9th and 15th centuries CE, rising slowly from dense forest to become one of the largest pre-industrial cities in the world. The site is renowned for its grand temple complexes, including Angkor Wat, built with an exquisite patience and reverence for the cosmos. But first, a slow little detour for this extra interesting fact. The temples were designed to mirror Mount Meru, the sacred mountain in Hindu cosmology, their tiered towers reaching like soft stone breaths toward the sky. The intricate bas-reliefs depict serene scenes of gods, battles, and daily life, carved with such delicate care that the passing centuries have only softened their edges. Angkor's vast hydraulic system, with reservoirs and canals, managed water gently across the city's sprawling landscape, supporting rice cultivation and a population estimated in the hundreds of thousands. Over time, changing climates and shifting political tides led to the gradual abandonment of the city, allowing the jungle to reclaim stone and sculpture. Today, sunlight filters softly through towering trees, illuminating moss-covered walls that hum quietly with memory. Let us drift softly onward across distant mountains and medieval stones. Ani, a medieval Armenian city once known as the City of 1001 Churches, rests now as silent ruins on the border between Turkey and Armenia. Flourishing between the 10th and 11th century CE, Ani was a vibrant center of culture, commerce, and faith, its skyline once dominated by domed churches and fortifications. But first, a slow little detour for this extra interesting fact. The Cathedral of Ani, built in the 11th century, is an architectural marvel of the Armenian medieval period, its stone arches and carved reliefs whispering of devotion and craftsmanship. The city's layout, with narrow winding streets and public baths, reveals a community that moved with the slow rhythms of faith, trade, and daily life. Ani's decline came gently through earthquakes, invasions, and shifting trade routes, leaving its stones scattered but not silenced, resting beneath wind-swept skies. Today, the ruins of Ani offer a soft glimpse into medieval urban life, inviting visitors to wander quietly through arches and broken walls where history lingers like a fading sigh. Let us float gently onward to the Swahili coast's whispering shores. Gedi, a medieval Swahili city on the coast of present-day Kenya, thrived between the 13th and 17th century CE, its stone and coral walls enclosing houses, mosques, and bustling markets. Built with coral rag and mangrove timber, Gedi reflects a culture attuned to the rhythms of ocean tides and monsoon winds. But first, a slow little detour for this extra interesting fact. The city's great mosque, with its finely crafted mihrab and sturdy walls, speaks softly of faith practiced with quiet dignity, its stones warmed gently by the sun and cooled by coastal breezes. Archaeological finds include imported ceramics from China and the Middle East, revealing slow but steady trade networks spanning vast distances. Gedi's streets and courtyards suggest a community that moved with the measured pace of maritime trade and seasonal cycles, living in harmony with both land and sea. The city was eventually abandoned, its ruins swallowed by forest and earth, but the memory of Gedi persists beneath the whispering palms and waves. Let us drift softly onward through the gentle folds of history's soft shadows, ease softly into the gentle murmur of history's slow unfolding. Let us drift through deserts, ancient capitals, and whispered legends where time moves with a tender, unhurried pace. Ctesiphon, a grand capital of the Parthian and later Sasanian empires, rested quietly on the eastern banks of the Tigris River, near modern-day Baghdad in Iraq. Flourishing from about the 1st century BCE through the 7th century CE, Ctesiphon was a sprawling city of palaces, bazaars, and monumental architecture. But first, a slow little detour for this extra interesting fact. The city's most famous remnant, the Tak Kasra, is a massive vaulted archway, one of the largest single-span mudbrick arches ever built, rising softly against the sky, a testament to architectural patience and engineering skill. Ctesiphon served as a vital hub between east and west, its streets filled with traders, artisans, and courtiers who moved with the gentle rhythm of political life and imperial ceremony. Though the city changed hands several times in its long history, its essence lingered in the ruins after Arab conquest and the shifting tides of empire. Today, the crumbling walls of Ctesiphon lie quietly beneath desert skies, whispering stories of grandeur, power, and slow passage of centuries. Let us float gently onward across sandy dunes toward a city swallowed by shifting sands. Ubar, sometimes called the Atlantis of the Sands, is a legendary lost city thought to have existed in the deserts of the Arabian Peninsula. Its existence was debated for centuries, a faint glimmer on the horizon of historical and archaeological imagination. But first, a slow little detour for this extra interesting fact. Modern explorers and satellite imagery in the late 20th century suggested that ancient caravan routes once converged near ruins in Oman, hinting at a city buried beneath drifting dunes. Ubar was reputed to be a wealthy trading center along frankincense routes, where merchants moved slowly but surely through harsh desert winds. The city's decline, whether through environmental catastrophe or shifting trade paths, remains wrapped in soft mystery. Like grains of sand slipping through fingers, the story of Ubar invites quiet reflection on the impermanence of human endeavors amidst the vast desert's patient embrace. Let us drift softly onward to the forested heart of Cambodia. Great Angkor Wat, the crowning jewel of the Khmer Empire, stands serenely amidst Cambodia's greenery as a symbol of spiritual and architectural devotion. Constructed in the early 12th century CE under King Suryavarman II, this vast temple complex was dedicated initially to the Hindu god Vishnu, later becoming a Buddhist sanctuary. But first, a slow little detour for this extra interesting fact. Angkor Wat's layout is an enormous cosmic diagram, with its 5 central towers symbolizing Mount Meru's peaks, the sacred center of the universe in Hindu cosmology. The temple's walls are adorned with extensive bas-reliefs that depict scenes from epic tales like the Ramayana and Mahabharata, carved painstakingly with delicate care that has weathered centuries with gentle dignity. Its surrounding moat and walls enclose a quiet, contemplative space that invites slow, meditative wandering. Angkor Wat was part of a larger city that grew and evolved gradually, supported by sophisticated water management systems that controlled the flow of rivers and reservoirs. As nature softly reclaimed much of Angkor's domain, the temple remained a steadfast sentinel, its stones humming with the soft pulse of ancient devotion. Let us float gently onward to the myths whispered across the deserts of the New World. Aztlan, a mythical place spoken of in Aztec legends as the ancestral homeland from which the Mexica people journeyed to found their great city of Tenochtitlan, rests in the realm of story and imagination rather than concrete ruins. The name means place of the herons or place of the white herons, evoking soft images of wetlands and gentle waters, though its exact location remains elusive. But first, a slow little detour for this extra interesting fact. Aztec codices and oral traditions describe the migration as a slow and sacred pilgrimage, marked by signs from the gods and quiet reflections at each resting place along the way. The journey spanned generations, moving with the rhythm of seasons and the patient guidance of celestial omens. Though no definitive archaeological site has been identified as Aztlan, its legend lives on as a softly whispered origin story, a symbolic wellspring of cultural identity and spiritual memory. In this way, Aztlan exists in the shared dreams and histories of peoples, a gentle reminder of the slow unfolding of civilizations through time and tale. Let us drift softly onward through the endless quiet of history's soft pages. As the soft shadows lengthen, let us settle slowly into the quiet embrace of the world's forgotten places. Places where the pulse of human endeavor slowed to a gentle beat, and time's whisper carries stories folded in silence. The Lost City of Z, a name wrapped in the mists of the Brazilian Amazon, calls softly from beneath dense canopies and tangled vines. This elusive city, once sought by explorers and dreamers alike, was rumored to be a sprawling civilization hidden deep within the jungle, where rivers weave like gentle ribbons through endless green. But first, a slow little detour for this extra interesting fact. Early 20th century British explorer Percy Fawcett devoted years to tracing indigenous legends and searching for this city, believing it to be a great center of culture and trade, where ancient peoples lived in harmony with the forest's slow rhythms. While no conclusive ruins matching his vision have been found, recent archaeological discoveries reveal complex settlements and earthworks along the Amazon's tributaries, quietly reshaping our understanding of ancient jungle societies. These earthworks, geometric shapes, mounds, and pathways, speak softly of communities that managed forests and waterways with gentle hands, nurturing life in slow cycles of growth and harvest. The lost city of Z, whether legend or a dream yet to be fully uncovered, invites us to float gently onward into the fertile soils of Mesopotamia. Babylon, known for its golden age during the Babylonian captivity era, offers a slow and solemn chapter in ancient Mesopotamian history. Nestled along the banks of the Euphrates River in present-day Iraq, Babylon was a city of immense cultural and political importance from the 6th century BC, especially during the reign of Nebuchadnezzar II. But first, a slow little detour for this extra interesting fact. The famed Hanging Gardens, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, though debated in their existence, are said to have been a masterpiece of horticultural patience and ingenuity, terraces of lush greenery rising gently amid the arid landscape. Babylon's imposing walls and the grand Ishtar Gate, adorned with images of dragons and bulls, stand as silent witnesses to the city's grandeur. During the Babylonian captivity, the Jewish people lived here under foreign rule, their lives unfolding slowly amid new customs and quiet hopes of return. The city's influence on law, literature, and astronomy moved through the ancient world with a measured and enduring rhythm. As dust settles on its ruins, Babylon remains a soft echo of power and perseverance. Let us drift softly onward to the heart of Africa's ancient stones, Great Zimbabwe. Rising slowly from the rolling hills of southeastern Zimbabwe, was the center of a powerful kingdom from the 11th to 15th centuries CE. Its magnificent stone enclosures and towers, built without mortar, stand like quiet sentinels of craftsmanship and social order. But first, a slow little detour for this extra interesting fact. The Great Enclosure, the largest ancient structure in sub-Saharan Africa, was constructed with carefully shaped granite blocks, stacked with patience and precision, forming walls up to 5 meters high and 250 meters long. These walls enclosed spaces for ceremonies and royal residences, all moving in the gentle cadence of social and political life that governed the region. Trade goods such as gold, ivory, and beads flowed slowly through Great Zimbabwe's markets, connecting it with distant lands along the Indian Ocean. The city's decline was gradual, as shifting trade routes and environmental factors nudged the kingdom into quiet repose. Today, the ruins of Great Zimbabwe stand softly against the African sky, their stones whispering stories of endurance and elegance. Let us float gently onward toward the sun-drenched banks of the Nile once more. Akhetaten, also known as Amarna, a brief but luminous chapter in Egypt's long history, was founded in the mid-14th century BCE by Pharaoh Akhenaten as a new capital dedicated to the worship of the sun disk, Aten. The city arose slowly along the Nile's eastern bank, with broad avenues, open courtyards, and temples suffused with golden light. But first, a slow little detour for this extra interesting fact. The art and architecture of Akhetaten departed from traditional Egyptian styles, embracing softer lines and intimate portrayals of royal family life, sunlight bathing scenes of father, mother, and children with quiet warmth. Despite its grandeur, the city was occupied for only about 2 decades, its inhabitants moving gently onward after Akhenaten's reign, leaving behind unfinished buildings and a cityscape frozen in time. Excavations have revealed extensive remains of houses, workshops, and administrative buildings, reflecting a community that thrived on Nile-fed agriculture and religious devotion. Akhetaten's quiet end invites contemplation of fleeting moments in history, where change moves softly but irrevocably. Let us drift gently onward into the embrace of more ancient whispers. Let us ease slowly into the soft twilight of forgotten worlds. Places that shimmer faintly in history's half-remembered dreams, where stories drift like gentle leaves on a still pond. Dwaraka, whispered in ancient Indian texts and shrouded in myth, is said to have been a magnificent city built by the god Krishna himself, resting on the western coast of India near the Arabian Sea. This mythical city is described as a place of gleaming palaces, broad streets, and lush gardens, a haven of divine light and serenity. But first, a slow little detour for this extra interesting fact. Some modern underwater explorations off the coast of present-day Dwarka have uncovered submerged structures and artifacts, gently suggesting the possibility that ancient settlements once rested beneath the waves, softly guarding secrets beneath the sea. The Mahabharata and other epics recount Dwaraka as a city of great importance and spiritual significance, its story unfolding slowly through poetry and song. Whether fully real or woven from the threads of legend, Dwaraka invites us to drift gently onward into the vast steppe lands of Central Asia. The Kushan cities, scattered across the regions of modern-day Afghanistan, Pakistan, and northern India, flourished between the 1st and 3rd centuries CE as the heart of the Kushan Empire. These urban centers were vibrant crossroads of culture, religion, and trade along the ancient Silk Road. But first, a slow little detour for this extra interesting fact. The city of Pirashapura, present-day Peshawar, was one such place, where Buddhist monasteries and stupas stood quietly alongside bustling markets filled with silk, spices, and precious stones moving slowly but steadily along caravan routes. The Kushans embraced a gentle fusion of Greek, Indian, and Persian artistic traditions, creating sculptures and coins that tell softly of cultural exchange and imperial grace. Life in these cities unfolded with the rhythm of long-distance trade and seasonal festivals, the slow turning of wheels and the gentle hum of prayers. Though the empire eventually faded, its cities remain faint echoes of a world where east met west beneath endless skies. Let us float softly onward to a city carved in stone and shadow. Petra, nestled within the rose-colored cliffs of southern Jordan, stands as a masterpiece of Nabatean ingenuity and patience. Flourishing from around the 4th century BCE to the 2nd century CE, Petra's buildings were hewn slowly from sandstone cliffs, their facades glowing softly in the desert light. But first, a slow little detour for this extra interesting fact. The intricate water management system developed by the Nabateans allowed them to capture and store scarce desert rainfall, sustaining a thriving oasis city that moved with the rhythm of slow, careful survival. The famous treasury building, Al-Qatsneh, with its ornate facade, is but one example of the city's carved wonders, standing silently at the edge of the Sikh canyon like a stone poem. Petra's narrow streets, tombs, and temples reveal a civilization that navigated the slow currents of trade and culture, connecting Arabia, Egypt, and the Mediterranean. The city's decline came gradually as trade routes shifted, leaving behind a labyrinth of stone that hums softly with history's gentle breath. Let us drift gently onward into the dense jungles of Central America. La Ciudad Blanca, or the White City, is a legendary lost city said to lie deep within the rainforests of eastern Honduras. For centuries, explorers and locals alike have whispered of its existence, a place of grand temples and plazas swallowed by lush green growth. But first, a slow little detour for this extra interesting fact. Recent archaeological expeditions using LIDAR technology have revealed previously hidden ruins beneath the canopy, uncovering evidence of complex urban centers that moved quietly through the dense forest, their stone structures softened by moss and time. The city is thought to have been inhabited by pre-Columbian peoples whose stories are woven into the fabric of Mesoamerican history. The slow reclamation of the jungle speaks softly of nature's patience and the enduring mystery of human presence in forgotten places. As we float onward through leaves and silence, La Ciudad Blanca invites us to dream gently of worlds waiting beneath the canopy's hush. Let us ease softly into the realm of myths and stones, where time's gentle fingers have woven stories both whispered and carved. We begin with a city that has danced quietly between legend and longing for millennia. Atlantis. A name that drifts like a delicate mist across the vast oceans of human imagination. First spoken by the ancient Greek philosopher Plato around 360 BCE. This mythical island city was said to have been a powerful and advanced civilization, swallowed by the sea in a single, slow cataclysmic moment. But first, a slow little detour for this extra interesting fact. Plato's dialogues, Timaeus and Critias, describe Atlantis as a place of concentric rings of land and water, an architectural dream of circular canals and bridges, gleaming temples, and vast palaces, each detail painted with quiet reverence. Despite centuries of speculation and searching, no confirmed archaeological evidence has ever been found, leaving Atlantis suspended in the soft fog of possibility and metaphor. Perhaps it serves more as a cautionary tale, a gentle reminder of impermanence, rather than a lost city awaiting rediscovery. As the waves lap softly against the shores of imagination, Atlantis whispers a lullaby of mystery and memory. Let us float gently onward beneath the earth's warm embrace. Derinkuyu, hidden deep within the volcanic tuff of Cappadocia, Turkey, is a vast underground city that could shelter thousands of people. This subterranean labyrinth was carved slowly over centuries, reaching as far as 85 meters beneath the surface. But first, a slow little detour for this extra interesting fact. The tunnels, rooms, and ventilation shafts of Derinkuyu reveal astonishing ingenuity, allowing inhabitants to live quietly and safely away from external threats for extended periods. This underground refuge included wells, storage rooms, kitchens, and even chapels, all connected by softly winding corridors designed to be easily sealed in times of danger. Archaeologists believe Derinkuyu was first carved around the 8th century BC, with expansions continuing well into Byzantine times, reflecting a gradual adaptation to shifting political and military landscapes. The cool stillness beneath the surface hums with centuries of quiet resilience and communal life. Let us drift softly onward toward a soaring pinnacle of ancient ambition. Sigiriya, an ancient rock fortress rising like a sleeping giant from Sri Lanka's lush plains, holds a story of royal grandeur and delicate artistry. Constructed in the late 5th century CE by King Kashyapa, this site was slowly transformed into a royal citadel atop a 200-meter-high rock outcrop. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact. The fortress is famous for its frescoes, painted with soft, natural pigments on sheltered rock walls, depicting celestial maidens in serene poses, their gentle expressions frozen in time. Surrounding the rock, gardens and water reservoirs were carefully designed with an eye toward harmony and tranquility, allowing water to flow gently through channels and pools, an ancient landscape crafted with patience and grace. The summit housed royal quarters and defense structures, connected by stairways and terraces that climbed the rock like a slow, measured ascent. Sigiriya's story ends quietly after King Kashyap's reign, but the stones still hum softly with echoes of ambition and peace. Let us float gently onward to the warm breezes of the Indian Ocean. Zanzibar, an archipelago off the coast of Tanzania, was once a vital hub of the Swahili Coast's trade network, its history unfolding slowly over centuries from around the 9th century CE. Stone Town, Zanzibar's historic heart, is a maze of narrow streets, carved wooden doors, and coral stone buildings that seem to breathe softly with the ebb and flow of tides and trade. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact. The island was a melting pot of cultures, African, Arab, Persian, and later European, each leaving gentle layers of architecture, language, and tradition that mingle like soft waves on a quiet shore. Zanzibar's clove plantations and bustling markets moved with the rhythm of monsoon winds and seasonal voyages, its economy intertwined with the slow, steady movement of dhows laden with spices, ivory, and slaves. The echoes of past sultans and merchants linger in the courtyard shadows, while the sea continues its timeless lullaby against the coral reefs. Let us drift softly onward through the vastness of history's tender embrace. Cusco, once the beating heart of the Inca Empire, lies nestled high in the Peruvian Andes at an altitude that invites slow, measured breaths. This city, founded in the 13th century CE, was no hurried capital but rather a carefully woven tapestry of stone, spirit, and ceremony. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact. The Incas built with remarkable precision, using stones so perfectly cut that they fit together without mortar, like puzzle pieces set by hands attuned to the earth's quiet contours. The city's layout was planned to echo the shape of a puma, an animal revered for its quiet strength and grace. At its center stood the Coricancha, or Temple of the Sun, walls once gilded with sheets of gold that shimmered softly under the Andean sun. Though most of the gold was later taken by Spanish conquistadors, the stones still whisper of sacred light. Life in Cusco moved with the rhythm of the seasons, festivals, and slow administrative routines managing the sprawling empire's far-flung corners. Let us float gently onward across the vast Sahel to a city that was a beacon of learning and trade. Timbuktu, perched on the southern edge of the Sahara Desert in present-day Mali, grew gradually from a modest trading post into a renowned center of Islamic scholarship and commerce by the 14th century CE. This medieval city was a place where knowledge and gold flowed with equal quiet dignity along the caravan routes that traced the desert's shifting sands. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact. Timbuktu's Sankore University and other madrasas housed thousands of manuscripts, texts on astronomy, law, poetry, and medicine, that scholars copied painstakingly by hand, preserving wisdom with gentle devotion across generations. The mud brick architecture, with its characteristic tapered minarets, stood firmly yet softly against the harsh desert winds, creating a calm oasis of learning and trade. Though trade routes eventually shifted and political tides ebbed slowly, Timbuktu's legacy as a cradle of knowledge endures quietly beneath the vast skies. Let us drift softly onward to the sun-baked plains of southern India. Vijayanagara, once a bustling capital of a South Indian empire from the 14th to 17th century CE, sprawled lazily along the banks of the Tungabhadra River. Its ruins, now protected within the Hampi World Heritage Site, reveal a city that blossomed slowly with grand temples, palaces, and bazaars that moved with the gentle pulse of devotion and commerce. But first, a slow little detour for this extra interesting fact. The Vithala Temple, famous for its musical pillars, allowed visitors to hear soft, ringing tones when stones were tapped lightly, an architectural marvel that married art with subtle science. Vijayanagara was a melting pot of cultures, languages, and religions, all blending slowly into a unique urban tapestry. Though it fell to invading armies and was abandoned, its stones still hum with the quiet dignity of a city that thrived on patience, artistry, and ritual. Let us float gently onward into the tender embrace of more softly spoken cities. Let us drift quietly into the soft folds of forgotten worlds, where cities once breathed slowly beneath lush canopies and sun-warmed stones. Each place a gentle heartbeat in the vast and unhurried pulse of time. Ciudad Perdida, the lost city, lies hidden deep within the Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta Mountains of Colombia, veiled by thick forest and morning mist. Thought to have been founded around 800 CE by the Tairona people, this ancient city was rediscovered only in the 1970s, after centuries of gentle slumber beneath vines and moss. But first, a slow little detour for this extra interesting fact. Ciudad Perdida consists of a series of terraces, connected by worn stone stairways winding softly up the mountainside, where hundreds of circular platforms once held homes and communal spaces. The site's remote location allowed life here to unfold at the pace of mountain clouds and seasonal rains, far from the rapid rhythms of lowland civilizations. Archaeologists have found pottery shards and carved stone artifacts hinting at a culture deeply entwined with its environment, living slowly and harmoniously amid the shifting mist. The city's decline came quietly, its inhabitants moving gently onward, leaving behind a place that hums softly with mystery. Let us float gently onward beneath the shimmering canals of a great lake. Tenochtitlan, once the magnificent capital of the Mexica people, rose upon an island in Lake Texcoco in present-day Mexico City. Founded in 1325 CE, this city was a marvel of slow engineering and urban planning, with canals and causeways weaving through the water like gentle veins carrying life's pulse. But first, a slow little detour for this extra interesting fact. The Chinampas, man-made floating gardens, were created patiently by piling mud and vegetation atop shallow lake beds, providing fertile plots that sustained the city's dense population. Tenochtitlan's grand temples, marketplaces, and palaces were built with stones quarried and transported by hand, each one placed with deliberate care. Life here moved with the cadence of ritual and trade, the soft lapping of water under canoes, and the distant echoes of flute and drum. Though the city fell under Spanish conquest in the 16th century, its layered ruins whispered gently beneath modern streets, a testament to human persistence. Let us drift softly onward to a hidden refuge nestled in the Andes, Inca Vilcabamba. A remote city tucked within the Andean cloud forests of Peru, served as the last stronghold of the Inca resistance following the Spanish conquest. Established around the mid-16th century, Vilcabamba remained a place of slow endurance and quiet defiance for several decades. But first, a slow little detour for this extra interesting fact. The city was rediscovered only in the 20th century, its ruins nestled among steep terraces and misty peaks, connected by narrow stone paths that wind gently through dense vegetation. The architecture is simpler than the grand palaces of Cusco but no less profound, built with the same meticulous stonework that fit each block as softly as a whisper. Here, life moved cautiously yet steadily, with farmers tending crops on terraced fields that followed the mountain's curves. The slow retreat of the Inca Empire into Vilcabamba's folds reflects a story of resilience and reverence for the land. Let us float gently onward into the sunlit ruins of a Thai kingdom, Sukhothai. The first capital of the Kingdom of Siam, founded in the mid-13th century CE, blossomed quietly into a city of elegant temples, statues, and canals that mirrored the serene waters nearby. Its name means dawn of happiness, and the city moved with the tranquil pace of early morning light filtering through palms. But first, a slow little detour for this extra interesting fact. The city's architecture shows graceful curves and gentle ornamentation, with the famous Sukhothai-style Buddha statues, characterized by their soft smiles and slender forms, inviting calm contemplation. Waterways threaded through the city, carrying boats and reflection alike, while markets and monasteries maintained a slow, steady rhythm of daily life and worship. Though Sukhothai's political power waned as neighboring kingdoms grew, its cultural legacy flows on softly in Thai art and tradition, like a peaceful river whispering through centuries. Let us drift softly onward to more softly spoken histories resting quietly beneath the earth's embrace. Let us settle softly into the embrace of history's gentle shadows, where cities bloom and fade with the slow rhythm of tides and time's patient hand. Ayutthaya, once a thriving capital of the Siamese kingdom, gracefully rose on an island surrounded by rivers in present-day Thailand. Founded in 1350 CE, this city grew slowly into a hub of culture, commerce, and diplomacy, its waterways carrying boats laden with spices, silk, and stories. But first, a slow little detour for this extra interesting fact. The city's layout was carefully planned, with majestic temples and palaces standing amid a network of canals that shimmered softly in the sunlight, reflecting the slow passage of passing boats and the gentle flutter of bird wings. Ayutthaya's architecture blended influences from Khmer, Sri Lankan, and Burmese styles, creating a tranquil yet stately atmosphere that moved at the unhurried pace of monsoon rains. Though it was eventually sacked in the late 18th century, its ruins continue to whisper quietly of a time when the city's heartbeat matched the soft lapping of river waters. Let us float gently onward across the restless seas to a city wrapped in the folds of modern mystery. Famagusta, particularly the Varosha district, rests on the eastern coast of Cyprus, once a vibrant resort town known for its sun-soaked beaches and slow, leisure-filled days. In 1974, conflict led to its sudden abandonment, turning it into a ghost town frozen in time, its empty hotels and silent streets swallowed by creeping vegetation. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact. Varosha was known for its 1960s glamour, attracting visitors with elegant cafes and slow, sunset strolls along the Mediterranean shore. Now, the city's deserted buildings stand as silent witnesses, their windows like vacant eyes watching decades slip quietly by. The stillness here is profound, with nature reclaiming spaces once filled with laughter and life, creating a unique landscape where time seems to pause indefinitely. Let us drift softly onward to a place marked by the hum of forgotten machines, Pripyat, a Soviet city established in 1970 near the Chernobyl nuclear power plant in Ukraine, was designed to grow slowly alongside the plant's construction. The city's wide boulevards, parks, and apartment blocks once echoed with the gentle rhythms of everyday life, schoolchildren playing, neighbors chatting, and markets humming softly. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact. Pripyat was planned as a model city of its time, with modern amenities and green spaces intended to nurture a comfortable, calm lifestyle for workers and their families. However, after the 1986 nuclear disaster, the city was evacuated swiftly, leaving behind a silent urban ghostland where nature now gently reclaims cracked roads and empty buildings. The familiar sounds of life have been replaced by the rustling of leaves and distant bird calls, creating a lullaby of quiet resilience and slow transformation. Let us float gently onward to a fortress island hardened by waves and industry. Hashima Island, known as Gunkanjima or Battleship Island, lies just off the coast of Nagasaki, Japan. Once a bustling coal mining community in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, this tiny island was densely packed with concrete apartment blocks and industrial facilities, built slowly upward like a fortress rising from the sea. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact. Hashima was one of the first places in Japan to have electricity and elevators, all carefully installed amid the relentless pounding of ocean waves. At its peak, over 5,000 people lived and worked here, their days moving in the steady rhythm of mining and maintenance. When coal demand declined, the island was abandoned in 1974, and the buildings were left to weather quietly against wind and salt spray. Now, nature creeps softly through cracks in ruins, turning the once vibrant industrial island into a hauntingly beautiful monument to human endeavor and the slow passage of time. Let us drift softly onward, deeper into the hush of history's tender embrace. Kolmonskop, a diamond mining town nestled in the sweeping dunes of Namibia's Namib Desert, once gleamed quietly with promise in the early 20th century. Founded around 1908 by German settlers, this small settlement slowly grew into a community of elegant houses, a hospital, and even a ballroom where the desert stillness was briefly filled with the soft shuffle of dancing feet. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact. The desert's relentless winds began to invade the town's corridors and rooms almost immediately, with sand drifting through cracked windows and piling up silently like tiny dunes inside the buildings. Kolmonskop was eventually abandoned in the 1950s as richer diamond fields were found elsewhere, leaving the town to sleep beneath layers of drifting sand. Today, it is a hauntingly beautiful ghost town where nature and architecture mingle in slow, quiet harmony, the soft whispers of sand dunes brushing against weathered walls. Let us float gently onward, toward an Italian village perched precariously above rolling hills. Crocco, a medieval hill town in southern Italy, holds the quiet story of a gradual retreat from life's demands. Established perhaps as early as the 8th century CE, this town grew slowly upon a rocky outcrop, its narrow streets and stone buildings clinging to the steep slopes with patient determination. But first, a slow little detour for this extra interesting fact. Crocco was abandoned in the 1960s due to landslides and earthquakes, as the earth beneath its foundations whispered warnings that residents slowly heeded. The village's empty houses, some still adorned with faded frescoes and wooden shutters, now stand frozen in time, soft shadows in the Tuscan light. Crocco's silence is punctuated only by the distant call of birds and the gentle rustling of olive trees swaying with the breeze. The town's haunting beauty has attracted filmmakers, drawn to its slow, eerie stillness. Let us drift softly onward to a village nestled in the folds of the Aegean. Kayakoi, once a thriving Greek village in southwestern Turkey, slowly emptied over decades as populations shifted following the tumult of early 20th century treaties and population exchanges. Situated among rolling hills and olive groves, Kayakoi's stone houses and crumbling churches now stand like whispered memories beneath a warm sun. But first, a slow little detour for this extra interesting fact. The village's unique architecture blends Ottoman and Greek influences, with homes built closely together and connected by narrow alleyways, encouraging gentle neighborly rhythms and soft, communal exchanges. As residents left, the village's silence grew deeper, and today, the empty streets are shaded by overgrown trees and wildflowers, nature reclaiming the quiet spaces with a slow, tender touch. Kayakoi is now a protected site, its peaceful ruins a gentle reminder of history's shifting tides and human stories that move softly between past and present. Let us float gently onward to a dream of industry lost in the rainforest. Forjlanja, a curious American industrial experiment deep in the Brazilian Amazon, was founded by Henry Ford in 1928 as a rubber plantation intended to supply his car factories with natural rubber. This town, designed with neat streets, houses, and a factory, was built slowly amid the dense jungle's endless green, but it never quite blossomed as planned. But first, a slow little detour for this extra interesting fact. Forjlanja struggled with many challenges, including uncooperative soil, tropical diseases, and labor unrest, which slowly eroded the dream of a self-sufficient industrial town. The town's architecture blended American suburban styles with jungle adaptations, creating an unusual but quiet contrast with its lush surroundings. By the 1940s, the project was largely abandoned, and nature began to reclaim the streets and buildings with gentle persistence. Today, the ruins of Forjlanja stand as a soft monument to ambition's ebb and flow, where the jungle's slow, persistent growth continues its quiet conquest. Let us drift softly onward into the next gently fading story. Let us ease ourselves softly into the quiet narratives of places where stillness lingers like a whispered breath. Where once vibrant lives have gently folded into the hush of abandonment and time's slow unfolding. Bodie, a ghost town tucked away in the Sierra Nevada mountains of California, grew quietly during the late 19th century gold rush, its dusty streets lined with wooden buildings that creaked softly under the weight of wind and memory. Founded in 1876, Bodie was a mining town that never quite lost its rough edges, but its heartbeat slowed as the gold veins ran thin. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact. Bodie was known for its so-called Wild West reputation, yet even here, the daily rhythms moved at a leisurely pace, miners tramping through dust, shopkeepers stacking goods with careful hands, and families gathering around hearths warmed by slow-burning fires. As the town emptied by the early 20th century, the desert began to claim its quiet corners, leaving behind wooden facades bleached by sun and softened by wind. Today, Bodie stands as a state historic park, a beautifully preserved snapshot of slow, dusty life now frozen under a vast California sky. Let us float gently onward to a village forever paused by tragedy. Oradour-sur-Glane, a small village in France, sits in silent memorial to a tragic day in 1944 when it was destroyed during World War II. Rather than rebuilding, the ruins were preserved exactly as they were, a solemn, still witness to history's slow shadows. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact. The village's cobbled streets, shattered windows, and collapsed roofs remain untouched, covered with moss and quiet overgrowth, as if nature herself is tucking the place gently to rest. The empty church, the overturned carts, and the frozen echoes of footsteps offer a poignant reminder of loss, silence, and the soft persistence of memory. Visitors today walk carefully through this open-air museum, absorbing its profound stillness, as if breathing in a very slow and tender lament. Let us drift softly onward, across desert sands toward a forgotten mining oasis. Humberstone, located in northern Chile's Atacama Desert, was once a thriving saltpeter mining town that slowly blossomed in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. This remote oasis of adobe buildings, wide streets, and shuttered windows echoed with the measured footsteps of workers and families who moved to the rhythm of extraction and hope. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact. The town's elaborate water system brought precious liquid life across arid expanses, enabling the slow growth of community amid harsh desert conditions. The boom of the saltpeter industry carried Humberstone's quiet pulse until synthetic alternatives emerged, and the town was gradually abandoned in the mid-20th century. Now, its ruins stand peacefully beneath vast blue skies, where gentle desert winds hum through empty corridors, telling soft stories of endurance and slow decay. Let us float gently onward to a seaside city held in stillness. Varosha, a suburb of Famagusta on the Mediterranean coast of Cyprus, once thrived as a bustling resort area before the events of 1974 led to its sudden abandonment. What was once filled with lively cafes, sunlit beaches, and slow, leisurely promenades now lies silent, a city frozen mid-moment. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact. Varosha's hotels, restaurants, and shops were left exactly as they were, with curtains still hanging and tables set, as if the residents had simply stepped out for a quiet moment and never returned. The encroaching sea breeze and creeping vegetation have woven a soft veil over the district's crumbling facades, transforming it into an eerie yet strangely beautiful monument to paused life. Its quiet streets, watched over by the distant waves, carry the weight of absent footsteps and dreams held in suspended animation. Let us drift softly onward into the next gentle story waiting beneath history's slow breath. Pripyat's expansion zones. The city once designed to cradle thousands of Soviet workers near the Chernobyl nuclear plant, spread gradually beyond the original town boundaries, with new neighborhoods planned to accommodate growing families and hopeful futures. But first, a slow little detour for this extra interesting fact. These expansion areas included schools, hospitals, and parks, all thoughtfully designed to nurture daily life, punctuated by the slow rhythm of seasons and community gatherings. After the disaster of 1986, these zones were evacuated almost overnight, their carefully tended gardens, playgrounds, and apartment blocks left to the tender care of moss, weeds, and silence. Nature's slow reclamation is now evident in trees sprouting through floors, animals wandering the empty streets, and the air filled with the gentle rustle of leaves where human voices once echoed softly. Let us float gently onward to a coal town swallowed by fire and fog. Centralia, a small town in Pennsylvania, began as a quiet mining community, its days moving to the slow cadence of coal extraction and neighborly greetings. But beneath this peaceful surface, a fire ignited in 1962, deep within abandoned coal mines, which continues to smolder softly underground. But first, a slow little detour for this extra interesting fact. The fire's steady, unseen presence caused the ground to shift and crack gently over decades, releasing warm breaths of smoke and toxic gases, gradually convincing residents to leave their homes, one by one. Streets now end abruptly in empty lots, and nature's soft green fingers reclaim the deserted buildings. The town's quiet hum is replaced by the slow whisper of flames beneath, a ghostly lullaby carried on the breeze. Centralia stands as a somber reminder of quiet destruction and the patience of Earth's hidden fires. Let us drift softly onward toward a lost city in the windswept steppes. Kanchubek, a Soviet settlement in Kazakhstan's former Semipalatinsk test site, emerged slowly in the shadow of nuclear testing activities that spanned decades. This town, built with simple, practical structures, housed workers who moved in rhythms tied closely to the unpredictable cadence of scientific experiments and the silent anxiety of invisible dangers. But first, a slow little detour for this extra interesting fact. Kanchubek was never large, but its isolation created a quiet bubble where daily life unfolded amid barren steppe landscapes and a sky vast and slow to change. After nuclear tests ceased, the town was gradually abandoned, leaving behind empty streets and scattered remnants of life once lived with cautious normalcy. Now, only the wind and dust carry the memory of this place where science and solitude intertwine gently. Let us float gently onward to a city that whispers of distant dreams and imitation. Tianjisheng, a modern Chinese development near Hangzhou, was designed as a slow homage to the French city of Paris, complete with a scaled replica of the Eiffel Tower rising modestly above pastel buildings and winding streets. But first, a slow little detour for this extra interesting fact. This ghost town was meant to attract residents seeking the charm of European architecture in a quiet suburban setting, yet it grew only slowly, with many empty apartments and streets stretching softly beneath the clouds. The slow unfolding of life here contrasts with the bustling cities nearby, offering a strange stillness where echoes of Paris mingle with the gentle hum of China's rapid growth. Tianjisheng's quiet plazas and empty cafes seem to hold their breath, waiting patiently for the soft footsteps of inhabitants to return. Let us drift softly onward into the gentle cradle of forgotten stories. Let us settle softly into the slow unfolding of places where ambition and silence meet beneath skies both vast and quietly watchful. Where cities breathe faint memories, wrapped in the gentle hush of stillness. Ordos, and more specifically its Kangbashi district in Inner Mongolia, China, was conceived as a grand vision of urban expansion, a city built with careful planning, wide boulevards, and soaring modern buildings designed to host tens of thousands. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact, Kangbashi earned the nickname Ghost City because, for many years, its gleaming streets and towering structures remained largely empty, like a theater awaiting its audience. The district's design emphasized spacious parks and public squares, inviting the slow meander of visitors who might enjoy the gentle sway of trees or the soft echo of footsteps on polished stone. Despite this quiet beginning, Ordos slowly saw residents arrive, giving life a tentative pulse amid its still, wide spaces. The gentle blend of ambition and emptiness lingers like a whispered question about modernity's slow rhythms. Let us float gently onward into a landscape where nature and history have quietly intertwined. The wider Chernobyl exclusion zone stretches across approximately 2,600 square kilometers in northern Ukraine and southern Belarus, a vast patchwork of forests, abandoned villages, and the silent remains of human endeavor halted abruptly by the 1986 nuclear disaster. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact, the zone has become one of the most unusual wildlife refuges in the world, where flora and fauna flourish quietly, largely undisturbed by human activity. Wolves, bison, and wild horses roam the soft underbrush, their slow movements weaving a natural lullaby beneath the canopy of reclaimed woodlands. Amid empty villages and crumbling buildings, the slow dance between decay and renewal plays out, a whispered testament to resilience and stillness. The exclusion zone invites us to consider the gentle persistence of life where humanity has stepped back, letting nature's rhythm pulse softly beneath the layers of silence. Let us drift softly onward toward a city caught between hope and absence. Agdam, once a bustling city in Azerbaijan, now rests as a haunting relic, caught in the quiet aftermath of conflict. Founded in the 18th century and developing slowly into a regional hub, Agdam was home to markets, schools, and everyday routines carried out at the soft pace of community life. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact, Agdam's quiet decay began after the early 1990s, when war led to its evacuation and destruction. Today, nature's gentle touch has softened crumbled walls and empty streets, with vines and wildflowers weaving their way through the remnants of a city paused in time. The silence here is profound, filled only with the soft rustling of leaves and the distant call of birds reclaiming abandoned spaces. Agdam stands as a quiet meditation on loss, memory, and the slow passage of history's quieter moments. Let us float gently onward toward an island city shaped by fire and sea. Plymouth, the former capital of Montserrat, lies mostly abandoned beneath layers of volcanic ash after the eruptions of the Soufriere Hills volcano beginning in 1995. This Caribbean town, once known for its laid-back pace and colorful colonial architecture, was slowly transformed by natural forces into a ghost town buried under silent sediment. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact, the volcano's eruptions created pyroclastic flows that moved with terrifying speed but also left the city suspended in time, a snapshot of life interrupted mid-step. The ash-covered streets, empty homes, and silent marketplaces now serve as somber reminders of nature's quiet power and the fragility of human settlements. Though inaccessible, Plymouth's ruins whisper gently of the lives once lived here, frozen beneath a blanket of volcanic dust and memories held softly beneath the tropical sun. Let us drift softly onward into the next tender chapter of forgotten places. Let us ease ourselves softly into the gentle shadows of places where nature and memory entwine, and the slow rhythms of time seem to pause. Where human footprints have faded, leaving only whispered echoes in quiet spaces. Sichuan's Old Town. Nestled in the mountainous landscapes of Sichuan Province, China, was a place where life unfolded with the gentle pace of rural rhythms, punctuated by seasons of planting, harvest, and soft community gatherings. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact. In 2008, a devastating earthquake struck, bringing the town to a sudden, tragic halt. The earth beneath shifted with a quiet yet unstoppable force, reducing buildings to rubble and transforming familiar streets into silent ruins. What was once a town of warm smiles and whispered conversations became a place where stillness stretched unbroken. Today, Sichuan's Old Town stands preserved as a memorial, where broken walls and empty courtyards were the gentle pattern of time and sorrow. Nature has begun her slow work of reclaiming, with moss and wildflowers weaving softly through the cracks. The silence here is profound, but it carries with it a tender memory of lives once gently lived. Let us float gently onward to lands where radiation hums softly beneath the surface. The Fukushima no-go zones, areas surrounding the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant in Japan, became quiet realms after the catastrophic events of 2011. These exclusion zones spread like an invisible shroud over towns and villages, their familiar streets emptied swiftly in the face of invisible danger. But first, a slow little detour. For this extra interesting fact. Despite the absence of humans, wildlife has slowly returned to these lands, moving cautiously through the forests and fields now free from human footsteps. Deer, boars, and birds have made the abandoned towns their home, creating a unique, slow-moving ecosystem in the shadow of past disaster. The buildings, weathered by rain and wind, stand as ghostly reminders of interrupted lives, their windows gazing blankly at empty roads, while vines and moss creep quietly over cracked walls, softening the sharp edges of forgotten homes. The quiet here is almost sacred, a solemn lullaby of absence and slow renewal. If your eyes are closed, if your thoughts are drifting, then my job here is done for today. Thank you for spending this unremarkable moment with me. You have listened to The Sleepy Sloth, where uninteresting things become the softest lullabies.